A young man from the UK found himself at rock bottom with nothing to his name, no job, no savings, and a pile of unpaid bills. He had grown up in an average household, never experiencing extreme wealth or luxury, but he always dreamed of something bigger. Watching successful entrepreneurs on TV and reading about self-made millionaires, he often wondered if he could ever break free from his struggles. His reality was harsh. Rejected from multiple job interviews and constantly facing financial stress, he found himself questioning whether he would ever escape the cycle of poverty. Every morning he woke up feeling the weight of failure pressing on his shoulders, yet deep inside there was a burning desire to prove everyone wrong. One evening, as he scrolled through his phone trying to distract himself from his worries, he stumbled upon a video about online businesses. It was a simple concept: buy products at a lower price and sell them at a higher price. He had no experience in business, but something about the idea clicked in his mind. He spent the entire night researching, reading forums, watching videos, and analyzing how people made money through e-commerce. By morning, he had a rough plan, but there was one problem: he had no money to start. Desperate to make something work, he looked around his small apartment searching for anything he could sell. Old books and used gadgets, and even his gaming console, all went up for sale. Within hours he managed to gather a few £100. It wasn't much, but it was enough to take the first step. With this small capital he started buying cheap phone accessories from a local wholesaler and listing them on online marketplaces. He carefully studied what was trending and priced his products just slightly below his competitors. The first few days were slow and he questioned whether he had made a mistake, but then the first sale came in, followed by another and another. The small rush of orders gave him hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could turn this into something real. The next challenge was managing deliveries, packaging, and customer inquiries. He quickly realized that handling everything alone was overwhelming. He barely slept, constantly worried about running out of stock or dealing with unhappy customers. There were days when he wanted to give up, but every time he considered quitting, he reminded himself of where he had started with nothing. He reinvested every single penny he made, buying more inventory, testing new product categories, and refining his marketing strategies. Learning from his mistakes, he discovered which products had high demand and which ones were a waste of time. It wasn't long before he started making consistent profits, enough to cover his rent and daily expenses for the first time in months. His confidence grew as he saw his bank balance slowly rising, but he knew that selling small items wouldn't make him rich. He had to think bigger. He started researching premium products, ones with higher profit margins. The risk was bigger, but so was the reward. He found a supplier for high-quality smartwatches, a trending product at the time. With his entire savings on the line, he placed a bulk order, hoping that his instincts were right. The watches arrived and he launched an aggressive marketing campaign using social media ads, influencers, and giveaways to attract customers. The response was explosive. Orders poured in faster than he could handle, and for the first time he experienced the rush of running a booming business. But with success came new challenges. Competition increased and suppliers started raising prices. Cutting costs without compromising quality became his biggest struggle. While he was making money, he knew that if he didn't adapt quickly, his success would be short-lived. Determined to stay ahead, he made a bold decision. Instead of relying on third-party suppliers, he would create his own brand. He spent months working with manufacturers, designing his own line of tech accessories. Every detail, from packaging to logo design, was carefully planned. He wanted his brand to be more than just another online store. He wanted it to be a symbol of quality and trust. The launch of his own brand marked a turning point. Sales skyrocketed and soon his business was making six figures, but even that wasn't enough. He started expanding his reach, moving from online sales to physical retail partnerships. His products were now stocked in popular stores across the country. The journey from having nothing to building a £1 million empire wasn't easy. He had faced failures, sleepless nights, and moments of doubt, but every setback only made him stronger. Looking back, he realized that the key to success wasn't just about money or luck, it was about resilience, the ability to keep going even when the odds were against him. The man who once struggled to pay his bills now owned a thriving business, inspiring thousands of others to chase their dreams. He had proved that no matter where you start, with the right mindset and determination, anything is possible. The success of his brand brought new challenges that he had never faced before. Managing inventory, customer service, and logistics at a large scale was completely different from what he had dealt with in the beginning. Orders were coming in at an overwhelming rate, and he quickly realized that fulfilling them manually was no longer an option. He needed a proper system in place to handle the growth, but hiring a team and setting up a warehouse required more money than he had. His savings were tied up in inventory, and although sales were strong, cash flow was a major issue. The money he made was constantly being reinvested, leaving little room for operational expansion. Frustrated but determined, he started looking for alternative solutions. He read about automation tools and fulfillment centers, companies that could handle storage, packaging, and shipping for him. Though skeptical about handing over such a crucial part of his business, he had no other choice. He partnered with a fulfillment center, which allowed him to scale without the burden of logistics weighing him down. With his focus now freed from packing and shipping, he redirected his energy towards marketing and brand building. He studied social media trends, consumer behavior, and digital advertising strategies. He learned that having a great product wasn't enough in today's market. He needed to tell a story, one that connected with his audience on a deeper level. He started sharing his journey online, posting about his struggles and small victories. People resonated with his story. A young man who had nothing built a business from scratch and was now living his dream. His transparency and authenticity won over customers, and the brand's popularity soared. To capitalize on this growing attention, he collaborated with influencers on social media. He carefully selected individuals who genuinely liked his products instead of just paying random celebrities for promotions. The strategy worked wonders. His sales doubled within months, and the demand for his products reached an all-time high. As the money flowed in, he faced another challenge. Managing profits and investments. Running a business was far more than just selling products. He had to ensure that he wasn't wasting money on unnecessary expenses. He hired an accountant and financial advisor to help him structure his growing empire properly. He learned about taxes, reinvesting profits, and expanding in a sustainable way. He also realized that his business was overly dependent on one source of income. If anything happened to the e-commerce platform he was using, his entire business could collapse overnight. It was time to diversify. He launched his own website, building a direct relationship with his customers and reducing his dependence on third-party marketplaces. At the same time, he expanded his product line, carefully choosing new items that aligned with his brand's image. He introduced premium versions of his best-selling products, higher quality with better features at a higher price point. The strategy worked brilliantly. People trusted his brand and were willing to pay more for products they knew would last. Despite the rapid success, he refused to get comfortable. He had seen businesses rise and fall overnight, and he knew that staying at the top required constant innovation. He started attending business conferences, networking with other entrepreneurs, and learning from their experiences. Every conversation, every new insight added another layer to his growing knowledge of business strategy. His hunger for growth pushed him to take another big step. He explored international markets, realizing that his brand had potential beyond the UK. He started selling in Europe and then expanded to the US. The process was complicated, with legal paperwork, taxes, and new regulations to navigate, but he tackled each obstacle one by one, knowing that this was the only way to take his business to the next level. The risk paid off. His brand was now recognized in multiple countries. Sales hit record highs, and for the first time he saw his net worth cross the seven-figure mark. From a struggling young man with nothing to a millionaire entrepreneur, he had transformed his entire life in just a few years. But he was far from done. He had built a business that was thriving, but he knew that real wealth came from making money work for him, not just working for money. He began studying investments, property, stocks, and passive income streams. His next goal was clear. He wasn't just going to be a millionaire, he was going to build a financial empire that would last for generations. With millions now flowing into his business, he felt a sense of accomplishment, but also a new kind of pressure. The fear of losing everything he had built kept him awake at night. He had seen many entrepreneurs rise quickly only to fall just as fast. He knew that if he wanted to secure his wealth, he had to think smarter and move strategically. His first step was reinvesting his earnings wisely. Instead of spending on luxuries, he focused on assets that could grow his wealth even further. Real estate caught his attention. He had read about how property investments created long-term financial security, so he took a leap of faith and bought his first rental property. It wasn't glamorous, just a modest apartment in an upcoming area, but it was a start. The real estate deal gave him confidence. He realized that relying on just one source of income, even a successful business, was risky. He started diversifying further, exploring stock market investments and learning about compounding wealth. The more he educated himself, the clearer it became that true financial success wasn't just about making money but about keeping and multiplying it. At the same time his business continued expanding, he hired a team to manage operations, allowing him to focus on bigger picture strategies and new opportunities. But managing people brought its own set of challenges. Employees had different work ethics. Some were passionate while others simply saw it as a job. He had to learn leadership skills fast, understanding how to motivate and retain top talent. Despite his efforts, he started noticing cracks in the business. Competition was getting tougher and new brands were entering the market with aggressive pricing and marketing tactics. His once loyal customers now had more choices than ever before. He could fully celebrate his success. He found himself in a battle to stay relevant. He realized that the only way to survive was to innovate. Instead of chasing trends, he focused on creating unique products that weren't easily replaceable. He collaborated with designers and engineers to develop tech accessories with cutting-edge features. His goal was to make his brand irreplaceable, something that customers wouldn't switch from easily. But even with product innovation, he knew that long-term success needed more than just great products. He needed a brand identity that people would remember. He started working on a powerful branding strategy, improving the website, customer experience, and overall messaging. He wanted people to feel connected to the brand as if they were a part of something bigger. Marketing became a huge focus. Instead of just running ads, he invested in building a community. He launched loyalty programs, customer appreciation events, and exclusive offers for repeat buyers. Social media engagement skyrocketed, and customers started sharing their own stories about how his products had improved their lives. Just as things were stabilizing, a new crisis hit. A major supplier increased prices overnight, putting a huge strain on profit margins. To make matters worse, a logistics delay caused massive shipping issues, leading to unhappy customers and refund requests. For the first time since he had started, he felt like things were spiraling out of control. The stress was unbearable, but he reminded himself why he started. He had faced worse situations before and had always found a way out. This time would be no different. He immediately got to work negotiating better deals with suppliers, even exploring local manufacturing to reduce dependency on overseas shipments. He revamped the logistics system, partnering with more reliable shipping companies to ensure smooth deliveries. The crisis tested his resilience but also made his business stronger. The lessons he learned forced him to build a more stable and self-sufficient operation, and with every challenge he overcame, his confidence grew even more. By this time, his personal brand had also gained recognition. People wanted to know his story, how he had built everything from scratch. He started getting invitations to speak at events, sharing his journey and insights on entrepreneurship. His social media following exploded, with aspiring entrepreneurs looking up to him for inspiration. At this point, he could have stepped back and enjoyed the millionaire lifestyle, but that wasn't enough for him. He wasn't just looking to maintain success, he wanted to build a legacy, something that would last far beyond him. He began to shift his focus from running a successful business to creating something that would have a lasting impact on the world. His vision evolved beyond profits to the idea of creating a brand that could change lives, inspire others, and contribute to society. He made the decision to dedicate a significant portion of his time and wealth to philanthropy. He started by funding programs that supported young entrepreneurs, giving them the resources and mentorship that he never had when he started. His own struggles had made him passionate about helping others avoid the same mistakes and setbacks. He also focused on supporting education and training initiatives in disadvantaged communities where he had once come from. He knew that the key to breaking cycles of poverty wasn't just about giving money, it was about empowering people to learn skills and build their own futures. He partnered with local schools and organizations to create scholarships and offer free workshops on entrepreneurship and personal finance. He used his platform to speak about social causes and encourage his followers to get involved in their communities. He launched charity drives and even used his brand to create awareness about important global issues such as climate change and access to clean water. His business wasn't just about selling products anymore, it was a vehicle for social change. Despite the new focus on giving back, his business continued to thrive. The combination of innovation, social impact, and exceptional customer service made his brand more popular than ever. He had created a loyal following not just for the quality of his products but for the values his company stood for. As he expanded further into international markets, his success continued to grow. The demand for his products was stronger than ever, and his brand was seen as a symbol of hard work, resilience, and integrity. His net worth had reached new heights, but his true satisfaction came from knowing that he was making a difference in the world. He also found peace in his personal life. His earlier years had been filled with stress and uncertainty, but now he had the financial freedom to live life on his terms. He took time for himself, traveling the world and enjoying the finer things that came with his success, but never forgetting where he came from. He started sharing his life more openly with his followers, giving them a glimpse into his personal growth and challenges. His transparency became a source of motivation for others who were struggling in their own lives. He wanted them to know that no matter how hard things got, there was always a way forward. He also started building his own family and legacy. He married the woman he had met a few years earlier, and together they had children. He wanted to create a legacy that wasn't just about the business or the money but about the values and lessons he would pass down to his kids. Now he wasn't just thinking about his success in terms of financial gain but in terms of creating something that would outlast him, a multi-generational family business with a commitment to excellence, social good, and integrity. He envisioned his children one day taking over the company and continuing the work he had started. In the back of his mind he knew that achieving greatness came with sacrifices, but now he understood that the most important thing was to build something that would help others and create a ripple effect that would continue long after he was gone. Looking back on his journey, he couldn't believe how far he had come from the days when he had nothing. The young man who had struggled to make ends meet was now an established businessman and philanthropist who had not only achieved wealth but had also built something meaningful. His story was one of perseverance but also one of giving back. He had turned his success into an opportunity to make the world a better place, and in doing so had created a legacy that would inspire generations to come. As his influence grew, so did the impact he had on the entrepreneurial community. He began receiving invitations to speak at major conferences, and his voice became a beacon for aspiring business owners who needed guidance and inspiration. Every stage he stood on was a platform to share his story, his failures, and his ultimate triumphs. He no longer saw himself as just a business owner but as a mentor and leader. His focus on helping others succeed began to take on a life of its own. He established a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs, providing them with not only advice but real-world experience. He invited them into his world, showing them the behind-the-scenes of running a business and teaching them the value of resilience, strategy, and mindset. He had learned that the true power of wealth wasn't in hoarding it for oneself but in spreading it in a way that empowered others to reach their full potential. He believed in the idea of creating a ripple effect where his success could inspire countless others to create their own opportunities. But as his mentorship program flourished, he faced new challenges. The more people he helped, the more questions he received. The demand for his time and knowledge became overwhelming. With his brand thriving, his philanthropic efforts expanding, and his mentoring duties growing, he had to learn to balance his time carefully. He hired a team of trusted advisors to help manage his expanding empire. This wasn't just about hiring staff but creating a team of like-minded individuals who shared his vision for growth and social impact. His business was no longer just about products, it was about creating a culture of empowerment, sustainability, and responsibility. His business practices had always been rooted in transparency and honesty, but as his influence expanded, he realized he needed to ensure that the same principles applied not just to his brand but across his entire industry. His commitment to ethical business practices became one of the cornerstones of his brand's identity. He led by example, choosing to work only with suppliers and partners who aligned with his values. He launched a series of initiatives to promote sustainability in the tech industry, encouraging others to think about the environmental impact of their products and operations. His commitment to making a positive impact wasn't limited to his community but extended globally. However, not everyone appreciated his approach. Some of his competitors and even some colleagues in the industry dismissed his values-driven approach as naive. They argued that in business, profits should come first, but he didn't back down. He knew that success wasn't just about numbers, it was about leaving a lasting, positive legacy. His voice became a strong one in the conversation about conscious capitalism and the role that businesses could play in creating a better world. His advocacy for responsible entrepreneurship earned him a place in international forums and discussions where he championed a future where business success was measured not just in dollars but in positive change. In his personal life, the constant balancing act between business, philanthropy, and family was a challenge, but one he took on with passion and dedication. His relationship with his wife grew stronger as they navigated this new chapter together. They shared the same values and vision, and both were deeply committed to making their children's futures even brighter. He often reflected on the early days, the sleepless nights, the fear of failure, the feeling that everything could crumble at any moment. It was hard to believe how far he had come, how a man who had started with zero and little more than a burning desire had turned that hunger into something that wasn't just about wealth but about creating a meaningful impact on the world. His story had become a symbol of what was possible when you pushed through adversity with a relentless belief in yourself and your mission. He was no longer just a businessman, he was a pioneer in the movement to redefine what success meant in the modern world. The young man who once had nothing now stood as a beacon for those who were willing to put in the hard work and make sacrifices to build something bigger than themselves. He had gone from 0 Indian rupees to a millionaire, and now to a philanthropist, an advocate for responsible entrepreneurship, and a leader in his industry. Through every step of his journey, he had never lost sight of the most important lesson of all. Success wasn't just about what you could achieve for yourself but about what you could do for others. What started as a simple dream had turned into an empire of growth, opportunity, and social change. As his influence spread, the recognition of his achievements reached far beyond the business world. His story was covered in global media outlets. He was invited to speak on national talk shows and feature in documentaries about successful entrepreneurs. He quickly became a household name, not just for his business accomplishments, but for his approach to social responsibility. But with fame came new challenges. The pressure to maintain his image and meet the ever-increasing expectations of his audience weighed heavily on him. At times, it felt like the world was watching every move he made, and the fear of failure, which he had once overcome, began to resurface. His team noticed the change too. They could see the toll it was taking on him. The once carefree and determined young man had become cautious, more guarded in his decisions. The responsibility of being an example for millions started to feel overwhelming. He struggled with how to balance public expectations with his need for personal peace and growth. In the midst of this internal struggle, he took a step back. He decided to take a break from the spotlight, a sabbatical, not from his business but from the constant media attention and the pressures of being the face of it all. He withdrew from public events and focused on reconnecting with his core values and personal goals. During this time, he spent more time with his family, taking long vacations where he could disconnect from the chaos of the world. His wife supported him through these challenging moments, reminding him of why he started this journey in the first place. It wasn't for the accolades or recognition, it was for something far deeper, the desire to create something meaningful. While on sabbatical, he revisited his original mission, the one that had started with his passion for entrepreneurship and his belief in social impact. He realized that along the way he had gotten caught up in building an empire at the expense of nurturing the passion that had originally driven him. He had lost sight of the joy he had once felt in helping others rise. With a renewed sense of purpose, he returned to his business with a clearer vision. He began to make changes that not only realigned his company's goals but also reinvigorated his own excitement for the future. He shifted the focus back to building a community of entrepreneurs who weren't just looking for financial success but were deeply committed to making a difference. He started by creating an incubator program that helped socially conscious startups grow. These were businesses focused on solving environmental issues, reducing poverty, or advancing education, the kind of enterprises that made him believe in the power of entrepreneurship in the first place. He invested in these startups not just with money but with his time and expertise, ensuring that they had the tools to succeed. His renewed focus on nurturing other purpose-driven businesses reignited the spark that had initially driven him to success. He started traveling again, but now it was to meet with other like-minded entrepreneurs, exchange ideas, and grow together. His journey had come full circle, from struggling to make ends meet to becoming a mentor who was determined to make a difference in the world through the power of entrepreneurship. Though he had reached the peak of financial success, he now understood that wealth wasn't just measured by profits but by the ability to create lasting positive change, and so, he pushed his company even further into areas of innovation. Working on sustainability and ethical practices within the tech industry, he had become a leader not only in business but in pushing for change within an industry that had long been criticized for its environmental impact. His reputation for being a purpose-driven entrepreneur began to attract new talent, people who were just as committed to making a difference as he was. His company was no longer just a business, it had become a movement for positive change and a symbol of responsible capitalism. He often reflected on how far he had come from that lonely and uncertain place where he had first started. His business wasn't just about turning a profit anymore, it had become a force for good, creating jobs, supporting young entrepreneurs, and driving positive change. The man who had once felt that his journey was about survival now realized it was about legacy. How would people remember him? Not just as the founder of a successful company, but as someone who had used his success to elevate others, inspire the next generation, and make the world a better place for all. In the years to come, he would continue to grow his business, but his focus would always remain on impact. His true measure of success was no longer defined by financial milestones but by how much change he could help create. He had gone from being a young man with nothing to a millionaire entrepreneur and philanthropist, and now, he was on a mission to leave behind a legacy that would inspire generations to come. As he looked at the empire he had built, he realized the true depth of his transformation. His journey had been marked by highs and lows, moments of doubt, failures, and obstacles that seemed insurmountable, but through every challenge, he had grown stronger, wiser, and more determined to leave a legacy that went beyond wealth. He knew that the future would continue to present new hurdles, but he felt equipped to handle whatever came his way. The lessons learned from his struggles were now a part of him, and he carried them not as burdens but as reminders of how far he had come. One day, as he sat in his office overlooking the city skyline, he received a letter from a young entrepreneur who had been inspired by his story. The letter detailed how this young person, who had once been living paycheck to paycheck, had started their own business after following his journey. They thanked him for being the catalyst for their success. Reading that letter was a moment of clarity for him. It wasn't the trophies or awards he had won, nor the amount of money in his bank account that truly mattered. It was the impact he had made on the lives of others. It was in the thousands of aspiring entrepreneurs who had taken their first steps because of his example, in the communities that were being transformed by the businesses he had mentored. And with that realization, he decided to take his journey to the next phase. He understood that as a business leader, his mission was never truly complete. He would continue to push boundaries, innovate and inspire, but his new mission was clear. It was time to scale his impact even further. His company had grown to a point where it had the resources to make an even larger difference. He expanded his philanthropic efforts, focusing on education initiatives worldwide. He partnered with universities to create entrepreneurship programs for students in underserved areas and launched a series of global hackathons to encourage innovation for social good. The impact was undeniable. He could see how the programs he had set in motion were changing lives. He watched as young entrepreneurs launched companies that focused on everything from renewable energy to healthcare solutions in developing nations. They were solving the problems he had once been passionate about, and it filled him with a sense of purpose and pride. He didn't just stop with global education, he also turned his attention to environmental sustainability. He realized that the world needed more than just businesses that made profits, it needed businesses that made a positive environmental impact. His company became one of the first in its industry to adopt a carbon-neutral policy and lead the charge on sustainable manufacturing practices. His efforts didn't go unnoticed. Major corporations began to follow his lead, recognizing that their future success would depend on how well they adapted to the demands of sustainability and social responsibility. He had become a pioneer in conscious capitalism and was being sought after by governments, organizations, and businesses all over the world. Despite all his success and the global recognition, he remained humble. He never forgot the struggles of his early days, the uncertainty, the rejection, the feeling that success might never come. He often shared these moments with his team, reminding them that success wasn't about where you started but about how you used your position to lift others up. And it wasn't just about his business, his personal life was flourishing too. He was now a father of 3, and his children were growing up with a strong sense of purpose. He and his wife had made it a priority to raise their kids not just with material wealth but with a sense of gratitude, responsibility, and compassion for others. He had built more than just a business empire. He had built a family legacy, one that he hoped would last for generations. His children, now growing into young adults, were already showing signs of the same entrepreneurial spirit he had once had at their age. They had become involved in his philanthropic projects and were starting their own ventures, grounded in the same values of integrity and social responsibility. His journey had come full circle, from the young man with nothing to a billionaire entrepreneur to a father and philanthropist committed to leaving the world a better place than he found it. He had learned that true success wasn't in the money, the recognition, or even the impact he had on his industry. It was in the way he had changed the lives of those around him. In his final reflections, he realized that his greatest achievement wasn't his wealth or his business success, it was the movement he had started, the movement to build businesses that didn't just profit but that purposefully contributed to a better world. He had set the stage for a future where the next generation of entrepreneurs would follow his example and know that wealth and social good could go hand in hand. Looking to the future, he was certain that his story wasn't finished. There would be new challenges, new opportunities, and new dreams to chase. But now, as he stood at the helm of a legacy that was already changing the world, he felt an incredible sense of peace. He had gone from 0 Indian rupees to a millionaire and beyond, but in the end, his true wealth was found not in the dollars he had earned, but in the lives he had touched, the communities he had uplifted, and the legacy of change that he would leave behind for generations to come. As the years passed, his business continued to flourish, but so did his influence in other areas of life. He was no longer just a businessman, he had become a symbol of how success could be used as a force for good. His story was used as a blueprint for future generations, a beacon of hope for anyone who believed that with determination, vision, and a sense of purpose, anything was possible. His name became synonymous with the values of hard work, innovation, and giving back. He wasn't just a successful entrepreneur, he had become a thought leader in the world of sustainable business practices, ethical entrepreneurship, and social impact. He was a sought-after advisor for governments, NGOs, and major corporations, sharing his expertise on how businesses could thrive while still doing their part to solve global problems. And yet, he never lost sight of what had gotten him here, the deep desire to make a meaningful difference. He remained actively involved in his philanthropic efforts, constantly looking for new ways to empower communities, support underprivileged youth, and drive forward environmental sustainability. He established scholarships, funded educational programs, and created mentorship networks in countries all over the world. His influence spread far beyond the business world as he became a champion for the marginalized, the overlooked, and the underserved. His life's work had evolved from a personal quest for success to a global mission to inspire and uplift others. His legacy was not only in the companies he built, the wealth he created, or the innovations he pioneered, but in the countless lives he touched. He often received letters from young entrepreneurs who credited him with giving them the courage to start their own businesses, from students who went on to graduate with degrees they once thought impossible, and from communities that were no longer struggling but thriving. His children, now young adults, were following in his footsteps. They were building their own businesses, leading initiatives to solve global issues, and staying true to the values he had instilled in them. They were taking the family business to new heights, while also creating their own legacies. Looking back, he realized that everything had come full circle. His struggles, his sacrifices, his relentless pursuit of success had led him to a place where he could truly say he had made a difference not just in his own life but in the lives of millions. His success was now intertwined with the stories of those he had helped, the communities he had uplifted, and the lives he had transformed. Now, more than ever, he was certain that his mission had always been about far more than just creating wealth. It was about creating opportunities for others to rise, helping people find their own path to success, and proving that the journey to greatness didn't have to be a lonely one. He had built a network of like-minded individuals who were working together to change the world for the better. In the final chapter of his journey, he knew that the real measure of his success wasn't in his financial achievements but in the impact he had made. The ripple effect of his story had spread far beyond his wildest dreams. He had gone from a man with nothing to a billionaire businessman, philanthropist, and global changemaker, but more importantly, he had become a beacon of hope and inspiration for others. His story had proved that no matter where you start, with determination, vision, and a commitment to giving back, anything is possible. And as he continued to build his legacy, he knew that his journey was far from over. He had started a movement, and the world was just beginning to see the true power of entrepreneurship when it was driven by purpose and passion. And in that moment, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace. He had truly gone from 0 Indian rupees to a millionaire, but more than that, he had gone from a dreamer to a world changer, and his story would continue to inspire, challenge, and uplift others for generations to come.